Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dalton, Illinois, finds herself at the center of a growing storm of controversy as more and more residents and political allies distance themselves from her leadership. Once hailed as a promising new leader when she rose to power in 2020 on a platform of improvement and fiscal responsibility, Henyard's tenure has quickly spiraled into a series of scandals, allegations of corruption, unethical behavior, and lavish spending. Her actions have left the town's residents increasingly disillusioned, especially as the town grapples with a multi-million-dollar budget shortfall. One of the most troubling aspects of Henyard's leadership is her lavish use of taxpayer dollars for personal luxuries, such as first-class travel, expensive hotel stays, and extravagant accommodations, practices that seem especially irresponsible given Dalton's dire financial straits. In the span of just 5 months, she reportedly spent tens of thousands of dollars on opulent trips, including stays at luxury hotels like the Four Seasons in Atlanta and the Marriott Marquis in Times Square, with little to no apparent benefit to the town. Critics have condemned these actions, questioning her judgment and motives, while some have even gone so far as to call her the most corrupt politician in America. In addition to these financial missteps, Henyard's leadership has been marked by allegations of favoritism, political deals, and ethical violations. A notable example of this was the approval of substantial overtime raises for police officers, which critics claim were intended to reward political loyalty rather than address the town's public safety needs. In a particularly eyebrow-raising case, one officer reportedly earned over $100,000 in overtime alone, more than double his regular salary. This has fueled accusations of fraud and misappropriation of taxpayer funds, as if these financial missteps weren't enough. Henyard's leadership style has also been a point of contention. Reports allege that she has resorted to authoritarian tactics, including intimidating and retaliating against those who challenge her authority. In a town that should be a place of healthy debate and community engagement, these tactics have created an atmosphere of fear and retribution, further eroding public trust. Many Dalton residents now feel trapped under Henyard's oppressive leadership. With little hope for meaningful change, Henyard's political downfall became even more apparent when she proposed a drastic measure to protect her own financial interests, cutting the salary of any future mayor, but only if she were to lose her position. This move, which some view as a safeguard to secure her own financial future in the event of her political fall, has only deepened suspicions that Henyard is more concerned about protecting herself than about the well-being of the community she swore to serve. It is decisions like these that have further alienated her from both her political allies and the residents who once believed in her. As investigations into Henyard's behavior intensify, calls for her resignation grow louder. Many are questioning whether she is still fit to serve, given the mounting scandals surrounding her administration. While Henyard continues to insist that she is the victim of a smear campaign, the facts are becoming harder to ignore. The FBI has reportedly become involved, further raising the stakes of the investigation. The growing chorus of dissatisfaction has reached a boiling point, with even some of Henyard's closest allies beginning to distance themselves from her. It's now clear that the once promising political career of Tiffany Henyard is on the brink of collapse. Further complicating matters are Henyard's questionable decisions regarding her inner circle. One of the most contentious moves in her administration has been her continued support for Deputy Police Chief Leah Lacy, who has drawn heavy criticism due to her criminal history. Despite Lacy's past criminal charges, including bankruptcy fraud and allegations of corruption, Henyard has steadfastly backed her, leading many to believe that Henyard is more interested in political loyalty than in the well-being of her constituents. Critics argue that Henyard's endorsement of individuals with questionable backgrounds, like Lacy, only serves to strengthen perception of a corrupt and self-serving administration. Henyard's leadership has now reached a breaking point. The town board's unanimous vote to terminate Lacy's employment was overruled when Henyard rehired her, disregarding the wishes of the board and further fueling suspicions that Henyard's leadership is based more on political favoritism than on responsible governance. This has further eroded public trust and raised serious concerns about the future of Dalton as Henyard scandals continue to pile up. The residents of Dalton are left wondering what will happen next. Will she be held accountable for her actions, or will she continue to cling to power despite the mounting pressure? The future of Dalton now hangs in the balance as a town, once hopeful for change, grapples with the painful reality of a mayor whose actions have deeply tarnished her legacy. In the midst of all this turmoil, Henyard's once loyal supporters are starting to vanish, and her political future looks increasingly precarious. Calls for her resignation are growing louder by the day, and the town of Dalton finds itself in a state of disarray, as it faces the very real possibility that its leader may have failed in nearly every aspect of governance. Whether Henyard will be able to weather the storm, or whether her leadership will be seen as nothing more than a cautionary tale about political corruption, remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: the pressure is mounting, and the days of Henyard's unchecked power may soon be over. Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dalton, Illinois, is facing an escalating crisis of leadership that is rapidly unraveling her political career. A once promising figure who rose to power in 2020 with a platform of fiscal responsibility and improvement, Henyard has seen her tenure marred by scandal, financial mismanagement, and a growing lack of accountability. As controversy surrounding her actions continue to mount, the dissatisfaction among Dalton's residents and town board members has reached a boiling point. The most recent catalyst or outrage is her blatant disregard for the town board's decisions, further deepening concerns about her ability to govern fairly and transparently. One of the most shocking examples of Henyard's leadership failures has been her reappointment of Deputy Police Chief Leah Lacey, a move that has sparked fury among both residents and board members. Lacey had been formally fired by the town board, yet Henyard unilaterally rehired her, ignoring the clear will of the board and raising alarms about her disregard for the checks and balances that are meant to ensure accountability. This decision has only added fuel to growing suspicion that Henyard's administration operates not with the public's best interests in mind, but rather in service of political allegiances and personal gain. The controversy surrounding Lacey's reappointment is just the latest in a long line of questionable decisions that have plagued Henyard's leadership. From lavish spending on personal luxuries, such as tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars spent on extravagant trips, to allegations of financial mismanagement and unreported expenses, Henyard's actions have caused her once loyal supporters to turn against her. Even former allies are distancing themselves from the embattled mayor, further eroding any remaining political support she may have had. It seems clear that Henyard's political house of cards is on the verge of collapsing, and with each new scandal, her grip on power weakens despite the growing pressure. Henyard has stubbornly refused to take responsibility for her actions. Instead, she has doubled down on portraying herself as a victim of a racially motivated attack, framing her critics as those who are trying to undermine her leadership due to her race and political stance. This narrative has only served to alienate the public further, with many residents viewing it as a desperate attempt to avoid accountability and deflect from the real issues at hand. Rather than confronting the growing pile of scandals and accusations surrounding her administration, Henyard has chosen to focus on portraying herself as a target of a political conspiracy, a strategy that has only deepened public distrust. One of the most damning aspects of Henyard's administration has been her handling of Dalton's finances. As the town faces a crippling budget deficit and increasing debt, Henyard's spending habits have raised serious questions about her priorities. One particularly egregious example is a $40,000 purchase from Amazon, which remains completely unaccounted for and has caused widespread alarm. Even more troubling is a $1,400 charge made in a single day, with no explanation for where the money went. These unreported expenses paint a picture of financial mismanagement at best and outright corruption at worst, further fueling the public's growing disillusionment with her leadership. Henyard's refusal to take responsibility for these financial missteps has only exacerbated the situation. Instead of addressing the crisis head-on, she has attempted to shift the blame onto others, including members of the town board and various political enemies. This pattern of deflection and avoidance has caused many residents to lose faith in her ability to lead. Public trust in her leadership is rapidly diminishing, with many questioning whether Henyard is truly capable of guiding Dalton out of its current financial quagmire. As investigations into Henyard's behavior continue to intensify, the public's frustration has only grown. The town board, which initially supported Henyard, has now become one of her fiercest critics. The decision to hire former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot to investigate Dalton's finances has only deepened Henyard's woes. Lightfoot's initial findings have painted a damning picture of financial mismanagement, unreported spending, and questionable credit card transactions, many of which appear to have no legitimate connection to town business. The investigation has exposed the chaos and dysfunction that has defined Henyard's leadership, causing public dissatisfaction to reach new heights. Despite these revelations, Henyard remains defiant, continuing to portray herself as a victim of political attacks rather than taking responsibility for the chaos that has engulfed the town. Her refusal to acknowledge the severity of the situation and to accept any blame for the financial disaster she has helped create has only further alienated the residents of Dalton. As the financial situation worsens, the people of Dalton are left with mounting frustration and no clear path forward. The town's future remains uncertain. As Henyard's leadership continues to spiral out of control, one of the most significant sources of anger among residents has been Henyard's lavish spending on events and personal luxuries, especially given the town's dire financial state. Henyard's boastful claims of being a super mayor have only added fuel to the fire, as residents grow more aware of the stark contrast between her extravagant lifestyle and the town's financial struggles. A particularly controversial moment was the hosting of an $85,000 party, which turned out to be a complete failure. This event, funded by taxpayer dollars, further cemented perception that Henyard is out of touch with the needs of the community. She is supposed to serve Henyard's decision to employ police officers for security details at these events, pulling them off the streets at the cost of thousands of taxpayer dollars, has only added to the growing list of questionable choices that further alienate her from the very people she is supposed to represent. Public meetings, once a place for open dialogue and discussion, have turned into flashpoints for anger and frustration. In one particularly heated moment, a frustrated resident yelled at Henyard, "You've done nothing. You don't care about anybody but yourself." It's clear that the tide is turning against her, and growing calls for her resignation are becoming impossible to ignore as the financial mismanagement continues to stack up. Henyard has refused to directly address the mounting concerns or offer any reasonable explanation for her actions. Her continued avoidance of responsibility has only polarized the community further, leaving many questioning her ability to lead. Perhaps most concerning is the growing disillusionment among Henyard's former supporters. One of her closest allies, Carmen Carlisle, has now become one of her most vocal detractors. At a recent board meeting, Carlisle accused Henyard of using employees, vendors, and even residents to maintain her grip on power. Carlisle's bold and public condemnation of Henyard's leadership, made directly in front of the mayor herself, has sent shockwaves through the town, signaling that even Henyard's inner circle is beginning to break apart. Carlisle's accusations paint a disturbing picture of Henyard's leadership as predatory and unethical, calling into question her commitment to public service and the well-being of the community. The fact that someone so closely aligned with Henyard has publicly turned against her is a clear indication that her political empire is rapidly crumbling. As more and more former allies distance themselves from Henyard, it becomes increasingly clear that her time in office is coming to an end. Henyard's tenure as mayor of Dalton has been defined by scandal, mismanagement, and a complete lack of accountability. As the investigation into her financial dealings continues and public frustration grows, the question on everyone's mind is whether she will be held accountable for her actions. Will she face the fallout from her controversial decisions, or will she continue to use political maneuvering to escape responsibility? The future of Dalton hangs in the balance, and residents are no longer willing to remain silent as their once promising leader continues to fail them. In the coming weeks and months, it seems almost inevitable that Henyard's political career will come to an end. Whether she will face legal consequences for her actions or simply be forced out of office by growing public pressure remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the residents of Dalton are watching, and they are demanding accountability. Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dalton, Illinois, finds herself at the epicenter of a political storm as a once loyal support she enjoyed rapidly disintegrates. A series of mounting scandals, financial mismanagement, and a growing public outcry have exposed cracks in her leadership, and it now seems increasingly unlikely that she can maintain control over the town. As the financial crisis deepens and public dissatisfaction continues to swell, Henyard's ability to remain in power is quickly being questioned. The pressure for her to step down has intensified, and the future of her political career appears uncertain. The people of Dalton are weary of the mayor's failure to take responsibility for the chaos that has unfolded under her leadership. Her inability to address the mounting problems, coupled with her divisive leadership style, has left the town in a state of disarray. The support Henyard once had is fading, and her political base is rapidly crumbling. As more scandals emerge and the anger among residents grows, it is becoming abundantly clear that the people of Dalton are demanding change. Henyard's tenure has been defined by her refusal to take responsibility for her missteps, and this has only exacerbated the situation. Rather than acknowledge the severe financial issues facing the town, Henyard has attempted to deflect criticism, framing herself as a victim of unfair attacks. However, the reality is that the community has lost faith in her ability to lead. Public meetings, once intended for open dialogue, have become battlegrounds where frustrated residents voice their discontent. Each failed attempt at addressing the public's concerns has deepened the chasm between Henyard and the very people she was elected to serve. The financial mismanagement and dysfunction under Henyard's leadership have reached a crisis point. Reports of unaccounted spending, questionable purchases, and extravagant events funded by taxpayer money have sparked outrage. Residents are particularly angered by Henyard's lavish spending habits, which have included taxpayer-funded parties and unnecessary events, while Dalton's financial health continues to deteriorate. One of the most shocking revelations is a $40,000 purchase from Amazon, with no clear explanation of the fund's usage. Even more concerning is a $1,400 charge made on a single day, which was also left unexplained. These financial irregularities have sparked outrage, as they appear to serve no legitimate government purpose, but rather reflect an ongoing pattern of financial mismanagement and a lack of transparency. Henyard's refusal to address these issues head-on has only fueled the growing anger among Dalton's residents. As the financial crisis deepens, public trust in her leadership is quickly eroding. Even members of the town board, who once supported her, have begun to turn against her. Trustees are now pushing for new bylaws designed to limit Henyard's power and restore accountability to the local government. This shift signals that Henyard's once solid political base is rapidly disintegrating, and her ability to retain control over Dalton's government is increasingly in jeopardy. Perhaps most concerning for Henyard is the growing opposition within her own ranks. Carmen Carlisle, once one of her closest allies, has emerged as one of her most vocal critics. In a dramatic public statement made at a board meeting, Carlisle accused Henyard of using employees, vendors, and even residents to maintain her grip on power. Carlisle's public condemnation of Henyard's leadership, made directly in front of the mayor, was a striking signal that even those who were once loyal to Henyard are now disillusioned with her conduct. This public break with one of her inner circle supporters is emblematic of the growing dissatisfaction within her political base. The political fallout from Henyard's actions is becoming more pronounced with each passing day. Frustrated residents and town board members alike are demanding accountability for her failures, and their calls for her resignation have grown louder. As the financial investigation continues, whispers are circulating about possible legal action against Henyard, adding further uncertainty to her future. The mounting pressure is beginning to take its toll, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to see how Henyard can survive this crisis, particularly with the growing opposition both from inside the government and among the public. Rumors of preferential treatment for a small group of Dalton business owners have further fueled suspicions about Henyard's leadership. It has been suggested that Henyard has been offering expedited permit approvals and relaxed regulations to those who are financially supporting her re-election campaign. Although no concrete evidence has emerged to confirm these rumors, the whispers have sparked growing distrust within the community. The idea that Henyard may be more focused on securing her political future than on genuinely serving the people of Dalton is gaining traction. Further undermining her credibility, compounding the situation, is the ongoing investigation into Henyard's personal use of government funds. According to individuals familiar with the probe, Henyard has used taxpayer money for extravagant personal purchases, including luxury goods and designer clothing. She has also been accused of spending public funds on lavish vacations with little to no connection to her official duties. These revelations have only deepened the sense that Henyard is more interested in indulging her personal desires than in serving the people of Dalton. As more details about her questionable spending emerge, it is becoming increasingly clear that her actions may have crossed legal lines, potentially leading to serious legal consequences, including charges of embezzlement. In addition to these financial scandals, Henyard's use of police officers for personal security at public events has sparked public outrage. It is reported that police officers were pulled off the streets to provide security for Henyard's events at great taxpayer expense. This blatant disregard for the needs of the community, especially when Dalton is facing a financial crisis, has infuriated residents, further eroding their trust in her leadership. Henyard's actions have become emblematic of a larger problem: a mayor who appears disconnected from the realities facing her town. The more the investigation into Henyard's financial dealings unfolds, the more her actions seem indefensible. As Dalton's financial situation continues to deteriorate, residents are growing increasingly frustrated with the lack of accountability from their elected leader. Many are now openly questioning Henyard's ability to fulfill her duties as mayor, with some even suggesting that a sixth grader could do a better job due to her evident corruption and mismanagement. These comments reflect a broader sentiment among Dalton's residents, an overwhelming sense of betrayal, as they see their mayor living a life of luxury, while their town's financial health continues to deteriorate. Amid the growing public outcry, Henyard has continued to resist calls for her resignation. She has repeatedly framed herself as a victim of a politically motivated smear campaign, refusing to take responsibility for her actions. However, this narrative is falling flat with the public, and her attempts to deflect blame have done little to quell the growing demand for her resignation. The pressure on Henyard is mounting, with increasing calls for greater transparency and accountability. The involvement of former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot in the investigation into Dalton's finances has only intensified the scrutiny on Henyard's administration. The investigation is now being handled by multiple parties, including the FBI, and it is expected to uncover even more details about Henyard's financial mismanagement. The stakes are higher than ever, and the pressure is beginning to push Henyard to the brink. Yet, she continues to resist, maintaining her stance of political persecution and casting herself as a victim of unfair attacks. This only serves to further isolate her from the public and her remaining allies as the investigation progresses. The future of Henyard's political career hangs in the balance. The call for her resignation have grown stronger with each passing day, and her ability to retain power is increasingly in doubt. Whether she will face criminal charges as a result of the ongoing investigation, or whether she can somehow manage to hold on to her position, is uncertain. What is clear, however, is that Henyard's leadership is rapidly unraveling as more scandals continue to surface and the public's patience wears thin. It seems inevitable that the mayor's tenure is nearing its end. The situation in Dalton has reached a boiling point, and the growing pressure for Henyard to step down is unlikely to subside. The coming weeks will be critical, as the town grapples with the fallout from Henyard's actions and the possibility of legal consequences. Whether she can somehow salvage her political career remains to be seen, but the future of Dalton now rests on the ability of the town's leadership to restore accountability and steer the community toward a more stable future for citizens of Dalton. One thing is certain: they are demanding change. The drama surrounding Henyard's leadership is far from over, and the next scandal could be just around the corner. As Henyard's grip on power weakens and public outrage continues to grow, it's clear that the town is on the precipice of political reckoning. The stakes could not be higher, and the outcome of this crisis will shape the future of Dalton for years to come.